Greetings, everyone. Welcome, welcome, welcome. I am so glad you're here. Thanks for tuning in. Tonight, we'll be reading more Proverbs from the Bai people of West Africa. They reside in Liberia and Sierra Leone. They have a rich heritage filled with triumph and with struggles. But their biggest struggle was when white people came and tried to civilize them.
Greetings. My name is the Revolutionary Matron, and my show is called The Learning Curve. I broadcast on a network called KWAZ Radio. There are other hosts on the network I'd like you to meet.
Greetings, everyone. This is Koku from the Bitter Medicine Podcast, inviting you to tune in to the Bitter Medicine Podcast on KWAZ Radio.
Peace, family. This is Oni, inviting you to listen to the Pro-Black Perspective, where Black problems are addressed with Black solutions.
This is D Webb with the Harsh Reality Podcast, asking you to tune in where we tackle the news of the day that affects our community, only on KWAZ Radio.
The views, thoughts, and opinions expressed here belong solely to the respondents, and they do not necessarily reflect any broadcast networks, affiliates, nor sponsors. The Learning Curve is a broadcast created for the benefit of my global community. Black is a consciousness. Content is being used for our commentary, research, criticism, education, scholarship, teaching, preaching, and news reporting. No copyright infringement is intended. I will make enunciation mistakes. I will give you my opinion about the information. And if you ever ask, I will send you my source.
The pig drinks liquor, but the goat gets drunk. A slave boy raised in a rich family imagines that he can do just as he pleases. In fact, he ventures to do things that his master would not do. Sometimes, when he is doing some of these things, he is sure to be told, "The pig drinks liquor, but the goat gets drunk." I interpret that similarly, but I interpret that to mean sometimes you can be the one to do something or to do the hazardous act, but someone else is harmed by it. So you can be the one to do the hazardous act or act without caution, and someone else is harmed by it. We catch a catfish because he does not like straw. The catfish, when he sees straw in the water, begins to fight it and thus is often baited by it, or the catfish does not like straw. And this is what makes him come to land. If a man is an enemy to another man and is always working up stories against him, one day, instead of the stories injuring the enemy, it falls upon the witness, and the people repeat to him the proverb, "The catfish does not like straw. That is why he comes to land." I don't really understand that one. The catfish does not like straw. That is why he comes to land. I guess because maybe the catfish doesn't like to be tangled up in the straw, and he comes to land, which is just as hazardous a place for him as the straw is. And so the catfish comes to land because he does not like straw. A frightened man will say, "How do you do, leopard?" when two men who have been enemies are forced into a contest in which they are both on the same side, if they are often twitted by those who knew of the former's enmity by the proverb, A frightened man will say, "How do you do?" to a leopard. The leopard is considered a very unfriendly creature in Africa. So saying, "How do you do, leopard?" is really a slight because it's an unfriendly creature. If a man raises a snake, he must tie it. When a man has a bad boy or daughter who is always getting into trouble, and he is called on to pay until a time comes when he declines to pay, somebody is sure to urge him to do so by quoting the words, "If a man raises a snake, he must tie it." So if you raise this child to be this way, you're the one that has to deal with it. The cow follows the man that has salt. When a man is obliged to seek the favor of a rich man and often does things for nothing in order to get pay in a small job for a small job, the question is asked, why is he always at the rich man's house? The answer is the cow follows the man who has the salt. So you go to the place where you know there's a resource of what you want there. If one man eats beans, he makes much straw. When two men have something and it is to be divided in each other's presence, they are contented. But if one of them is absent, the likelihood of his being dissatisfied with the division is very great. In case of the division made in the absence of one man happens to be fair, and the man who was absent complains when he returns, his complaint is answered with, "If one man eats beans, he makes much straw." In the case of the beans, the absent man would refer to returning to the great quantity of hulls as evidence of the fact that the much beans had been eaten. So the saying, if one man eats beans, he makes much straw, is about being cheated. A little rain every day will make the river swell. People are encouraged to save money by repeating to them this old saying, which is used with respect to all matters that may be accomplished little by little or gradually. A little rain every day will make the river swell. The frog says, "I have nothing, but I have my hop." When a man is poor, yet has something that no one else has in the country, he is very proud of it. For example, medicine. And when persons come to buy them, often may be heard repeating to himself, "I have nothing, but I have my hop." A man who waits on a monkey in a tree has shot it. A man goes to another man's house who has gone away and has not indicated when he will return. The stranger decides to wait until the man's return and stays at his house. After a few hours or a day or even longer, some of the family asks the man, what is he waiting for? He replies that he is waiting for the return of the man of the house. He is asked if he was told when he would return, and he says no. Then you may expect to hear, "A man who waits on a monkey in a tree has shot it." So a man who goes to your home to wait for you there without any indication of when you're going to return home has killed you. If the stomach is full, it is palaver. If it is hungry, it is palaver. A poor man visits one man and is well entertained and returns home without having made any dash for his entertainment or any tributes for his entertainment. The host of the poor man visits his town, and the poor man is unable to entertain him as he was entertained, but he desires to do something. So he catches a chicken and takes it to the good and kind visitor, and presenting it, conveys to the visitor an idea of his situation when he repeats, if the stomach is full, then it is palaver, and if hungry, it is palaver. So that the hungry or otherwise, it is palaver for the poor man. So no matter what, whether it be good or bad, you're full because I made a sacrifice for you. If I do not go in, I must go by. When a native vendor is carrying about his wares, sometimes some person will see something he wants and takes it, but he wishes to pay at another time. The vendor is almost sure to refuse credit, and for this purpose, it is very convenient to have a proverb. If I do not go in, I must go by. If I do not go to the gree bush, you must send my cloth. Every person that goes to the gree bush has her cloth taken from her. If she is finally rejected from the bush, when she leaves, she is entitled to have her cloth back. It is the custom in having a big dinner and dance for a number of people to put in their contributions in advance. Those who have contributed are entitled to the privileges of the dance. Sometimes a person who has so contributed is denied participation at the dinner by mistake, a mistake that arises from varying causes of management, as, for instance, when the person who admits the people is unacquainted with all who are entitled to enter. When someone is thus rejected, who is entitled to enjoy the privileges of the dinner, he is sure to shout, if I do not go to the gree bush, you must send my cloth. So you must return to me what I have invested in this sacred institution. Hens never promise to give the chickens milk. A rich man very often will promise a poor man to help him. And when he helps the poor man in a way that is proper according to his judgment, the poor man will still remain dissatisfied and ask the rich man for something that he does not wish to give. When the poor man thus insists, he is very likely to hear that hens never promise to give the chickens milk. So hens, meaning the mothers or those that have the resources, never promise to give milk to the chickens, those that they're responsible for. If you cannot mend the gourd, how can you fix the bowl? This saying is often applied to cobblers. For example, a goldsmith representing himself to be able to do all kinds of work induces a man to give him an important job. But before he enters upon it, his customer gives him a small article that he wishes mended. The smith, unable to repair the article, botches the work, yet he wants to undertake a much more important job. The deceived patron answers, if you cannot mend the gourd, how can you fix the bowl? So if you can't do a small thing, how can I trust you with a bigger job? Why should a naked man fight for soap? Soap is in great demand among the natives who wear clothes, and sometimes many of them are contented over a single piece. But the naked man is seldom, if ever, seen in trouble himself about it. In native war, a strange man in a town attacked is not expected to fight. If the town should be captured, he would be set at liberty, making known the fact that he was a stranger. But if a stranger should violate the custom and join the town people in resistance and should get killed, people who express their sorrow for him are likely to hear somebody ask, why should a naked man fight for soap? Why should he fight this battle that wasn't even his battle? He could have been let go or set free. So why should he participate in their armed struggle? The dog goes to the blacksmith shop for its bell, but what does the cat go for? The officers and persons who are known to have business with the king may call upon him and remain for hours, and no comments upon their doing so will be made. But if persons whose business are not known, or whom some people envy because of their favor with the king, are seen to visit the king too often, or to remain what is considered too long, somebody will comment upon it by saying, the dog goes to the blacksmith shop for its bell, but what does the cat go for? So that's a way of them inquiring and being nosy about it and showing their displeasure at someone going to the king to curry perhaps favor, because what business do you have even going there? Man likes a full spoon, but not an empty plate. A man who has been rich, but who has squandered his money and become the object of pity, excites the comment of those who knew him in his better days. And as he passes along the thoroughfare, they often mutter to themselves, man likes a full spoon, but not an empty plate. So he likes to consume all of these things, but the end result of it is nothing. The man left the other man in one field, or the lazy man is always left behind. A man had a son attending school. Every now and then, the son finds some excuse to stay out of school until the father, alarmed, begins to scold. When he is almost sure to say, the man left the other man in the field, which is to say that two men set out to go to a town, but one of the men, trifling along the way, has left one out in the field. So as you can see, they had an ethic in their proverbs. They always had some reference to nature, something to business sense, some moral code or compass about the relationships that they had with one another. My spear has gone through the banana tree. The banana tree is regarded by the African as a very valuable tree. It contributes a great deal to his support. No one would knowingly do anything to injure or kill the banana tree. Information reaches the king that a terrible crime has been committed, and very strict orders are issued for the capture of the malefactors. When they are caught and brought before the king, he is surprised to find out that they are his own kinsmen. He conveys to all the path of the full depth of his sorrow, when to himself he sadly repeats, my spear has gone through the banana tree, so I must punish my own family for their egregious acts. If crazy men are in the country, it is not difficult to find slaves. The finer tribes of West Africa believe that one way to get rich is to have plenty of slaves. They also believe that any person who would consent to be a slave is not possessed of full mental power. A Vai trader had a clerk who was constantly making mistakes, sometimes giving too much change, and sometimes by selling too cheaply. And in speaking of his clerk, a Vai man used this expression, if crazy men are in the country, it is not difficult to find slaves because they will work for anything. The poor man raises children for the rich. Among the Africans, the poor man does not himself consume any very fine commodity that he may raise, but sells it to some rich man. Their children, however, are their most precious jewels. When a poor man, carrying his fine rooster, goat, or cow to a rich man, is asked why he does not keep it and eat it himself, his only answer is the proverb, "The poor man raises children for the rich," and therefore small things such as fowls, goat, and cows must necessarily belong to the rich too. The poor man raises children for the rich. That's an interesting proverb because it's almost like because of their hierarchy or their understanding of their social order, they gave everything to those who were better off. Maybe they needed the money. I don't know. But they gave everything to the rich. They paid tribute and dashes to the rich. The chicken without feathers says, "The chicken with feathers gets cold. Why do you ask me why am I cold? Why I am cold?" When there is a scarcity of food articles and men of means are unable to buy what they want, the friends of a poor man sometimes joke him about with the scarcity of his food, and he finds relief in saying the old saying, "The chicken without feathers says, the chicken with feathers gets cold. Why do you ask me why I am cold?" So if rich people can't even buy what they want, and because it's the lean times or the scarce times, then why would they ask the chicken without feathers whether or not they can afford the things that they want in their society? The country devil, when he has good dress, plays in the daytime. The country devil usually plays at night when she has not good dress so that she may not be detected and recognized. Her continued influence depends upon the concealment of her identity, and although she is dressed as a man, she is nevertheless a woman. The Vi man goes off and makes money and comes home and gives a big dinner in display. He has never given a dinner before. Among the many persons invited to dine, some will ask, "Why did this man give this big dinner?" And there will be some to answer, "The country devil, when he has good dress, plays in the daytime." So when you have an abundance, and this is something that poor people do as well as rich people, but when you have an abundance after you hit a lick or after you had made a big sale, you go and you throw a big dinner. But when you don't have that, when you haven't made that sale or when you don't have that abundance, you kind of sort of blend in, but you want to show it off when you got it. The person who has not dropped anything will look for it with his foot. A vine man with 2 or 3 brothers gets in trouble and must pay a large sum of money. The brothers of the man in trouble go about the town telling the people that they have trouble because their brother has to pay a big sum of money. Later, these brothers are seen screaming their way away their means, and someone will ask them, "How can you spend your money so when your brother is in trouble?" The brother who is really in trouble remarks, "The person who has not dropped anything will look for it with his foot." Mm. The person who has not dropped anything will look for it with his foot. The chicken that wastes the palm oil his leg will be red because palm oil is red. In a family where there are several brothers, one of them is thought to have committed a theft. The accusers, in their zeal to catch the guilty, are willing to punish all the brothers when some old head will object on the ground that the chicken that wastes the palm oil, his leg will be red, and will insist on ferreting out the guilty from the innocent. So the guilty will be made obvious because the leftover evidence of the crime will be apparent. The man who did not attend the funeral says the dead man had plenty of which. It is customary among the Bai to examine the dead for a witch by what we would consider a post-mortem examination. Sometimes they find evidences of no witch, at other times a small witch, and again of a big witch. When evidence of a small witch is found, persons who were not present will circulate reports of the finding of a big witch, illustrating the nature of man to exaggerate, so that when any Bai man begins to tell anything that seems too unreasonable, so much so as to be tantamount to a falsehood, the unbelieving quote the proverb, "The man who did not attend the funeral says the dead man had plenty of which." So that is just meant to say that people exaggerate, people lie all the time, so you can't believe everything you hear. It's the same as us saying, believe none of what you hear, half of what you see. The paddle you find in the canoe is the paddle that will carry you across. It is a custom among the Bai to send up the country to the kings for slaves. Nearly all the time, the king has some person or persons imprisoned in sticks to be sold as slaves. Upon application for slaves, the king usually only sells those who are in sticks. If the slave buyers insist on getting more, it is pointed out that the paddle you find in the canoe is the paddle that will carry you across. So what you see is what's available for you. You can't request anything else. In the absence of the leopard, the bush cat is king of the bush. I take that to mean that when there's no other enemy there, the strongest person present is the winner or is the dominant one. He explains it by saying, sometimes the king visits a neighboring town for a short time. During his absence, some people are almost sure to take advantage of the situation and do some wrong. Sometimes a general spree, some persons will get drunk and rage and row and riot, or some ambitious man whom the king has authorized to keep a lookout until his return abuses his authority, and by his acts of injustice arouses just indignation. Some of the old reliable people of the town may be seen talking to themselves or others, during the course of which they will often repeat, "In the absence of the leopard, the most powerful animal, the bush cat is king of the bush." So, in absence of the king, the bush cat, or this low level, low ranking general or person, is king of the bush. One bad goat will spoil the herd. There is one man who is buying palm oil in a town. One dishonest man mixes water with his palm oil and sells it. The man who bought the palm oil and water gets vexed and refuses to buy any more palm oil because of this fraud having been practiced upon him. Those who have been honest in making and selling palm oil must suffer for another's wrong are reminded that one bad goat will spoil the herd. So one bad experience will turn somebody off of your whole town. The wise man is father of the fool. A rich or intelligent man in Africa is considered a big man, and very often such a man has a bad son or daughter who seems to have none of the attributes of the family and whose conduct repeatedly reflects upon the family name. Sometimes the son will get into trouble as fast as his father gets him out, or the daughter will take up a life of shame and her acts will furnish themes for social gossip. It is under these sad circumstances that we hear, "The wise man is father of the fool." A boil comes on the leg of the small bird. It is a belief that a boil comes on the leg of a small bird because of the difficulty of treating his small, frail limb, and that on a large bird, they can easily be prevented. When a poor man gets into trouble and is unable to pay and must remain in a native prison, he is compared to a little bird with a boil on his limb. If he had money, he could pay, and thus, like a big bird being saved from having a boil, he could avoid imprisonment. So when a man is seen in sticks or in prison, some passerby will remark, "A boil comes on the leg of a small bird." The lame man complains of the head of his carrier. A person is in poor circumstances, and in a time of distress, a sympathizer and friend takes him in and gives him food and shelter. After a little while, the person taken in begins to complain of his food or some inconvenience he has to suffer. When the complaints reach the ears of his friend, the vile man says, "The lame man complains of the head of his carrier." The lame man complains of the head of his carrier. So the lame man, the person that's on your back that you carrying through this particular difficulty that you're taking care of, that can't even walk or take care of themselves, has the nerve to complain. Mushroom in a bugabug hill does not know that the other mushroom has run. Mushrooms are usually found in the Vi country, one on one side of the bugabug hill and one on the other side. When it comes out on one side, frequently the other one on the other side has disappeared. One man gets into trouble and is placed in sticks, and he sends a messenger to his brother or friend to inform him of the trouble. When the messenger arrives, he finds in prison the brother or friend who says to the messenger, "Mushroom in a bugabug hill does not know that the other mushroom has run." You can't let the left hand know what the right hand's doing, is another way of saying that. Small palm nuts are not slaves for the large one. A freeborn boy, while playing, gets into a fight with the king's son. The neighbors gather, and then some of them tell the little freeborn boy that he should not be fighting with the king's son. In the meantime, the father of the little boy appears and overhears the admonishment given to his son, and he resents it by saying, "Small palm nuts are not slaves for the large one. Small palm nuts are not slaves for the large ones. It is better for a hungry man to go to the owner in the house than to the cook in the kitchen. When people want to borrow or buy something on credit, so they had a credit system there, sometimes a clerk will pretend that he owns the goods or has the power to dispose of them on his own terms to enhance his own personal importance. But he continues to put the people off without disclosing the real owner or limiting his ability. Then some of the disappointed will begin to talk about their disappointment, and someone will remind them that it is better for a hungry man to go to the owner of the house than to the cook in the kitchen. If the man who tends the farm is rich, what must the owner be? Very often, a man who works for another through thrift and economy accumulates considerable property. A stranger, in passing by with a person who belongs in the community, admires the wealth of the workman and is told that he is only a servant or clerk for another man. When the stranger exclaims, "If the man who tends the farm is rich, what must the owner be?" So they had servants, they had a credit system, they had wealth. These people had proverbs which expressed a great deal about their society. They had a respect for nature and culture. So you have to understand, in listening to their proverbs, you begin to see what they valued. They saw the leopards as the strong man or king of the jungle. And when the leopard was out, the bush cat was king. That just meant that when the king was away, his servants that he left in place abused their power and authority. So as you can see, they had a rich culture, and they still have a rich culture to this day. It's just been Christianized. Greetings, Brother Bakari. How are you tonight? Thanks for tuning in. You do not tell the rice cutter that he has some rice before him. Sometimes a man will give to another a job of work to do, and before the workman has completed it, the employer, afraid that it will not be done well, points out in advance, before the workman has turned the work over, certain parts which have not been done, and a favorite retort of the workmen. So they had balanced power dynamics because the relationship was there. You do not tell the rice cutter that he has some rice before him. So you don't tell me that I haven't finished the job that I'm still doing. A snake can run, but he cannot outrun his head. Sometimes a strong young man takes pride in fighting, and after a few combats, he is acknowledged as champion of his neighborhood or his town. One day, this young man begins to fight, and a big man in the community, hearing of this, starts out to stop him and put the young fighter in his proper place. On the way, the big man meets one who has been cowed by the strength and valor of the young fighter, and he, the one who had been cowed by the young fighter, advises the big man that it is no use for him to go, as he will not be able to conquer the young man. But if the big man is not deterred by these warnings and predictions, it is necessary for him to say, "A snake can run, but he cannot outrun his head." So this young man is a snake, and his body always follows his head. So he can never outrun his head. It's just the way things are. You can never outrun your head. The man who swims thinks that no one sees his feet. The man who swims thinks that no one sees his feet. A thief steals something. When the people begin to investigate, they find evidences pointing to one man. They approach him and begin to question him on the subject and refer to some of the things that point to him, in the thought, perhaps, that he might confess. But the thief stoutly maintains his innocence, and that so strongly that the people leave him, but they leave with the thief this wise saying, "The man who swims thinks no one sees his feet." And he thinks that because his feet are underwater, always moving, that no one sees them, kind of sort of like a duck. Your food is close to your stomach, but you must put it in your mouth first. Sometimes, among the by, a son or a nephew will take or desire to take the property of his father or uncle without waiting for the ordinary process of by custom. The son or nephew, as soon as his father or uncle dies, proceeds to take what he wants, since it all belongs to him, and he does not quite see the necessity of complying with the custom of carrying everything to the king first. His attention will be called to the irregularity, and perhaps the conversation someone will reinforce his remarks by saying the proverb, "Your food is close to your stomach, but you must put it in your mouth first." So, yes, your food is right there, or yes, everything you want is right there for you to take, but we have a process in place that you must follow before you can do that. Your food is close to your stomach, but you must put it in your mouth first. No matter how bright the moon shines, it is dark in some places. The Vai educate their children, teaching them the Vai script as well as the Arabic, together with the principles of knowledge from an African standpoint, as well as the culture of the Quran and the Arabs. Sometimes, the people in a community exert themselves and put every child under the influence of education. But in spite of all their efforts and success in educating him, some boy is sure to turn out badly. Then the old people shake their heads and say, "No matter how bright the moon shines, it is dark in some places. So no matter how hard you try, you can't win them all." When you meet two old ladies together, one is always older than the other. It is a common thing for Africans to comment on one's wealth. So they had wealth for the wealth to be something that they commented on. A number of young men get together, and during the course of conversation, one of them refers to a rich man he knows. Another mentions one whom he claims has greater wealth. Finally, they reach two of whom they are unable to decide which has the greater wealth. And so they agree to take the matter to an old man who will remind them of the wisdom of the fathers. When you meet two old ladies together, one is always older than the other. So when they saw these two rich people, one is going to be richer than the other. It's not for you to know. You just need to know that they're both rich. No matter how long a dry leaf remains on the tree, sometime it will fall down. The Vai in their large towns have their markets. Sometimes a man is unable to secure credit from one of the traders, but because he cannot pay, he will stop coming to the market. He remains away so long that the trader begins to complain he is not coming. And before he complains long, he will find someone who knows the old saying, No matter how long a dry leaf remains on the tree, sometime it will fall down. So, no matter how long a person has come to you begging and asking for credit, trying to get the resources that he needs, at some point in time, he's going to just give up the ghost and stop. And that's what happened here. But again, they had a credit system. These native people had a credit system. If you put a stick in a hole, it will fool you, but not so with the hand. The Vai are a very intelligent people, and they like to have slaves wait upon them. When a bad slave is sent to do something and fails to do it, it is certain to furnish a subject for comment afterward among the neighbors. The master puts the blame on the slave, but somebody will transfer it to him, saying, if you put a stick in a hole, it will fool you, but not so with the hand, implying that the master should have attended the matter in person. So, yes, you can send your slave to do your bidding, but if you had done it yourself, with your hand, you would know what was really going on. You would have attended the matter the way that and it would have happened the way that you wanted it to happen. No matter how much sense the little boy will get the young cola from the tree. When a Vai man has a very bright boy, he trusts him to do little things. He often sends him to the market. No matter how satisfactorily the little boy performs this service, the day he makes a mistake, his father will reprove him, saying, no matter how much sense the little boy will get the young cola from the old tree. The little boys are set up in the cola trees for colas, and other young colas are not good to eat. So they're talking about cola nuts. And they're saying that these children have impossibly high standards placed on them because no matter how satisfactorily they have done this in the past, no matter how good they were at this task or other tasks, at the point that they make a mistake, they are told this proverb, no matter how much sense the little boy will get the young cola from the tree. Cola nuts are bitter. So that just gives you some perspective about how they saw the world. When a little boy slips off and goes into the trees and cannot get down, he calls for his parents. War breaks out between two tribes. A third tribe declares neutrality. Then the king warns all of his subjects against taking on any part in the war. One of his subjects joins in the war in spite of warning and is captured by the other side. He sends word to his king, who declines to have anything to do with him. But the erring man's friends and relatives beg and entreat the king to take up the matter, and they clinch their appeal with the well-known saying, when a little boy slips off and goes into the tree and cannot get down, he calls for his parents, which is a strong plea to the parent feeling, because kings are supposed to have this paternalistic, benevolent feeling towards their people. But they didn't have any business joining in the war in the first place because that king had declared neutrality. So it was his own fault. But again, with the relationship being the most important thing among these African centered people who were in Africa, who were minding their business before the interruption of the European commerce and trade, they said when a little boy slips off and goes into the tree and cannot get down, he calls for his parents. He's saying that even though he went over there doing stuff he had no business doing, the king should be responsive to his plea for help and assistance. When a small bird says, I am fat, you make a hole in a little pot and reply, if you're fat, will fill this pot, then you are fat. In some by towns, there is a man who is always getting into trouble, but he seems to get out every time. One day he gets into trouble from which no one believes he will be able to escape. As it is impossible to fill a pot with a hole in it, they say, when a small bird says, I am fat, you make a hole in a little pot and reply, if your fat will fill this pot, then you are fat, which is expressive of their belief in the impossibility of the man's being able to secure his release. And as much as to say, if you can get out of this trouble, you are smart indeed. If you have not carried the war, you must not play fight. When a man has a case and the native lawyer who has promised to appear on the day set for trial for him does not appear, the man is sure to complain of this action of the lawyer, which is condemned by the words, if you have not carried the war, you must not play fight. So if you're not going to stand here and protect me against this legal action and defend me with all that you have, don't give me hope. Don't tell me that you're going to be my lawyer if you're not going to be my lawyer, or don't promise me something that you're not going to deliver. If you have not carried the war, you must not play fight. If you're not going to deliver what you promised, don't promise me anything. If you're not here to stand 10 toes down with me, then don't tell me that you got my back. If you have no one to carry the goat, do not let it go in the mud. If you have no one to carry the goat, do not let it go into the mud. If the goat goes into the mud and the owner has no one to carry it, and he is obliged to carry it across someplace, he is sure to get his clothes dirty. A man's son gets into trouble and the injured party appeals early to the father in the matter so that the difficulty may be settled without much cost to the father. But the father declines to have anything to do with it, fearing that he will be obligated to take up later when the trouble will be greater. The old saying is brought into service. If you have no one to carry the goat, do not let it go into the mud. So if you have nothing to lose, if you have everything to lose and no one to help you, stay away, stay out of trouble. Stay out of trouble. If you have no one to help you, because you're going to get dirty in this particular process, cleaning it up later. Because if you let the goat go into the mud, it's going to get stuck in the mud and it's not going to be easy to get it out of the mud. Your clothes are going to get dirty and your goat is going to get dirty, and you're going to waste more resources cleaning yourself and your goat than you would if you just carried the goat across in the first place. A shamed man cannot eat crawfish. So they had crawfish there. A shamed man cannot eat crawfish. The people like crawfish, but if they eat it, they make noise in cracking the encasing, and the neighbors will call for some. Hence they say, a shamed man cannot eat crawfish. Sometimes a man has another man arrested for some offense, but the arrested man, by his own talk or the influence and talk of his friends, frightens the person who had him arrested so that the prosecution halts and wavers. The prosecutor is advised to drop the matter, and although he does not carry forward his case, he declines to dismiss it and recites the story of the crime or offense. After a time, someone observing the man is afraid to do anything, expresses his disgust in this way. A shame man cannot eat crawfish. So the squeaky wheel gets the oil, or you can't make noise, or you can't enjoy yourself, this fine thing, if you have shame. A shame man cannot eat crawfish. The Bugga Bugga Hill says, if you do not want people to mash you, do not let the mushroom come. Some people like many friends and have many visitors, and some of them are sure to give trouble. So a friend or member of your family will advise you against having so many friends, and they will give as their authority. The Bugabug Hill says, if you do not want people to mash you, do not let the mushroom come. So don't have attractive nuisances if you don't want people to be all up in your business. If a frizzled chicken lives in a town, the town cannot burn. If a frizzled chicken lives in a town, the town cannot burn. Among the Vai, to eat a frizzled chicken is good luck. Among the Vai, there are some men who devote their time to peacemaking. When two men quarrel, they go to them and stop it. If war is about to break up, they take up the cause with both sides in the interest of peace. In every difficulty, their good influences and offices are felt for good. They are regarded as a blessing to any community, and so they live in those wise sayings that are handed down from generation to generation. If a frizzled chicken, a good luck omen, lives in the town cannot burn. So if we have good luck omens strewn about our town, a town cannot burn. So go to the wise men to settle your differences. Don't fight, don't make war. No man leaves the doctor's work for nothing. The Zoo is the head of the Gree Bush, an institution for the training of the young Bai girls that this author happened to be very fascinated with. The Zoo is at the head of a great many things, and one of the departments under her is medicine. It is a good position of great authority and influence. Besides being a good singer, one must belong to a family of money or power, for at the death of the Zoo, 2 slave money, which is about £6 sterling, is to be paid by the family of the deceased to the king, or the Zoo cannot be buried. On the one hand, people are attracted by the prominence and importance of the position, and on the other hand, they are repelled by its grave responsibilities. When it is refused, it is for good and fundamental reasons. When a man hires one man to do a piece of work and he goes off without finishing it, sometimes this workman meets his former employer and is asked why he did not do the work. Being ashamed to give the reason, he says that there was none. The employer insists to the contrary, for no man leaves the doctor's work for nothing. No man leaves the doctor's work for nothing. That's an interesting set of stories and circumstances, because those are some very complicated relationships talked about in this particular proverb, because you have the girls' training institution, the head of that institution, the dash or tribute that's placed upon the person when they die. They had death taxes that were payable to the king, and then you have this person who did not complete his work for someone, and he is then put in a position where he's asked, why didn't you finish the work? But he was ashamed. And so no man leaves the doctor's work for nothing. So no man leaves the doctor's work for nothing. That's an interesting one. It talks more about their complicated relationship systems and the hierarchy that they had in their society. An old hen cannot turn the town for nothing. A hen that will not attend to her chickens or hatch her eggs is likely to be sold from one person to another until she is sold all around the town. So that when you see a hen that has gone around the something, that has gone the round, something is wrong with her. A man brings you a good looking boy and you buy him. Later, you ascertain that the boy steals. The buy man, in commenting on the boy, is sure to bring up that old adage that says, a hen cannot turn the town for nothing. So there's got to be a reason why this beautiful, perfectly attractive person is still single. There's got to be a reason this hen is still available because it's not hatching eggs and it's not attending to its chicks. There's got to be a reason that attractive person that you think is a catch is still single. There have got to be problems there. So an old hen cannot turn the town for nothing. He's not going around and around the bend for no reason. If a billy goat has jewelry 20 years with the silversmith, how many more years has he to dress? The billy goat has whiskers, and some people put bags around his neck. The billy goat could hardly live anything like 20 years. His day for dressing is short. When your goods to the buy tailor to be made, when you take your goods to the buy tailor to be made, and every time you call, he has not commenced working on your clothes but promises and puts you off, you are sure to get tired after so many postponements, and you are indignantly you'll ask, if a billy goat has his jewelry 20 years with the silversmith, how many more years has he to dress? So, billy goats are stubborn in most cultures. So, in their culture, billy goats, you know, don't live very long. But if the billy goat has your jewelry for 20 years with the silversmith, so it's had it for a long time, longer than his lifespan, how much longer does he have to wait? Or how much longer does he have to wait before he gets his due justice? If you do not know, two, look at the goat's head. The goat has two horns. The goat has two horns, as everybody knows. Whenever a by man wants to insinuate that you do not possess ordinary sense, as such as when he is trying to explain to you something very plain to himself, something that you cannot see or understand, he dismisses the matter in contempt, saying, if you do not know too, look at the goat's head. Mm. If you don't know this simple thing, look at the goat's head because you'll be able to see two horns. It's obvious, isn't it? The gripper feeds itself upon its own little fish. Some poor by men have a number of boys in the family, such as nephews, cousins, etc. Every now and then, he sells one of them to some rich man. So this was a custom of theirs where they sold members of their family into slavery. Some of his own relatives do not like this selling of the family, and finally protest is made. The explanation is that the boys are to be redeemed, and when pressed too much comes the vexed retort. The gripper feeds itself upon its own little fish. So the gripper feeds itself upon its own little fish is meant to be kind of like a warning and a way of saying, how is it that you are going to get us out of debt by selling our children into slavery to feed us when we when we can never redeem them, you're lying about being able to redeem them. So the Vai people sold their children, their males in this instance, into slavery because they had too many of them in their household, but that was not a pleasing custom to these people. When you cook dog meat, eat it hot, for when it is cold, it smells badly. A Bai king announces that he will carry war on the Golas, a neighboring tribe, but he does not do so at once. He allows much time to pass and the Golas get prepared for the attack. In support of abandoning the attack, an advisor quotes among his reasons, when you cook dog meat, eat it hot, for when it gets cold, it smells badly. So when you make a plan to do something crazy, act fast, because if you think of a study long, study wrong is the modern day version of that. Study long, study wrong. So if you have a plan and you think you can pull it off, go ahead and pull it off, because if you give people time to prepare for your attack, then they will indeed prepare for your attack. A small string brings down a big bunch of grass. Mandingan grass is kept in the lofts of Vai houses. In taking down the grass by the blade, a single blade is almost invariably will bring down a large bunch. A rich man injures several members of a family and escapes any punishment. By and by, he does some little thing to another member of the family, and very heavy damages are insisted upon for this damage that is trivial in comparison to what he has done to the other members of the same family and escaped without punishment. The man is now brought to pay for all the wrongs against this family through the occasion of this one small little wrong, and is astounded at the injustice of the claim. He minimizes the wrong he has done, but somebody recalls to him, a small string brings down a big bunch of grass. So a small string brings down a big bunch of grass. So these small little pebbles in the pond create big ripples as they go further and further out away from that central focal point. But he had already done these people wrong a couple of times and had escaped any type of punishment or justice. So he just kept doing stuff. So he needed that punishment, right? When you are troubled in mind and your slave runs away, you put your hand in your pocket. A Vai man gets into serious trouble, and in his confusion of mind, he goes for help to another man who is not his friend, and the man refuses to help him. He relates the incident to a friend who reproves him for going to this man for help. And there we have an occasion for the saying, when you are troubled in mind and your slave runs away, you put your hand in your pocket, yet your slave is not in your pocket. You wash your mouth with cassava, and it is good for your stomach. There is a custom among the Bai of eating raw cassava, and it is called washing the mouth. Among the Busi people, this is the chief way to clean their teeth, so that aside from being food for the stomach, cassava is really good for cleaning the teeth. A man is sick, the family has medicine to give him, but it must be prepared with fresh meat. The man has no appetite and does not wish to eat, but aside from the food, he is told that medicine is prepared with it, yet he hesitates. But he is all right when he hears someone say, you wash your mouth with cassava, and it is good for the stomach. So, as you can see, these people have a very rich history. They have a lot of different proverbs. They have probably more pages of proverbs than they have stories or folklore. But I'm going to read one of their first folklore if it'll load on my PC. But they have a lot of different history. They had a credit system, they had an honor system. The relationship and the connections that they had to one another were the most important things. They would appeal even to the king using these emotive uh, inferences and relationship connections. So, as you can see, they continue to stress the importance of the relationship they had to one another. Greetings, KW Down 7. How are you tonight? All right. So, one of their folklore, two orphan brothers. Once a man had two sons, and he died. Before he died, he called his sons to him. To the large one, he said, "If your brother tells you to do anything, you must do it no matter what he is." And then the man passed away. The little brother told the large brother that he must go to the bush and live there as they had no one in the town. "All right, let us go." And the large brother said the large brother, and they went. When they got in the bush some distance, they saw the lion lying down sleeping. The little brother said to the other, "Let us kill this lion." "But what have we to kill him with?" asked the large brother. "We have no gun nor anything else." "I have a bow and arrow," replied the little brother. "But," said the older brother, "can a bow and arrow kill a lion?" "That is all right," continued the little brother. "When father was dying, did he not tell you to do everything I told you?" "Well, shoot the lion with your arrow," said the large brother. The little brother shot the lion with his arrow. Then the lion jumped up and ran after the two brothers. The brothers climbed up into a large tree, and the lion left them there. After the lion left, they did not know how to come down. And while they were there, the eagle came by. The large brother asked the eagle to carry them out of the tree. The eagle said, "You two get on my back," and they did so. The eagle flew away with them and carried them into a field where they had plenty of rocks. The little brother said he was going to shoot the eagle so it could fall down and die. "You must not do that," said the large one. "If you do, we will fall down on those rocks and we will die." "Did not my father tell you to do whatever I said?" asked the little brother. The large brother said, "Well, shoot him." The little brother shot the eagle. They fell down on the rocks and both of them died. A snail came along and found them dead. The snail went into the bush, got some medicine for the large brother, and he got up. The snail then asked if he must make some medicine for the other brother. "No," answered the large brother, "because my brother is a bad fellow. He has gotten me into plenty of trouble. Come, let us go." "You are as bad as your brother," replied the snail, "because you say I must not cure him." "Well, cure him and you will see," concluded the large brother. The snail gave the little brother some medicine, and at once he rose. And as soon as he got up, he said he was going to kill the snail. "You see, did I not tell you?" remarked the large brother. The little brother took the snail in his bag and said to his brother, "Let's go." They went into a large town. After they arrived at the town, they heard that the king was dead. The little brother said, "You must tell these people that we killed the king." "We have been dead once, and you want us to die again?" said the large brother. "Did not father say that anything I say, you must do it?" asked the little brother. Well, added the large brother, you go tell the people that you killed the king. The little brother went and told the people, I and my brother killed the king. The people caught the two brothers and put them in sticks, which is prison. The little brother said to the people, you must carry us into the house where the king is. The people did so. Then the little brother continued, we killed the king, but what will you give us if we cure him? The people answered, if you cure the king, we will give you half of this town. The little brother took the snail and cured him from his bag, and told the snail that he must use this medicine to cure the king. The snail cured the king. He then called to all the people and told them, I have cured the king. The people then divided the town in half and gave the little brother half. Then the little brother told the large one that he must stay there while he had to walk about, as he had given the larger brother plenty of trouble. The little brother left the town and killed the snail. All's well that ends well. That was a complicated story. So you had two brothers who had a father that died in the beginning, and the little brother wanted to kill the lion, wanted to kill the eagle, eventually did kill the snail, but they were resurrected miraculously by the snail, and because of their prolific storytelling and their ability to convince the townspeople that they had killed the king, they used that story to leverage themselves into getting land because their father left them with nothing. So I guess the father knew that the younger brother was much more cunning than the older brother, and that he would navigate the world in a way that would benefit them both. All right, guys. I am all done here tonight. What do you think about their folklore? Do you think that their folklore and their proverbs proves that they had a high civilization? They had a credit system. They traded in slaves. They had uh, interpersonal relationships and connections with one another. They had a hierarchy in their social order. They respected rich people. They respected and valued poor people and working class people. Working class people had rights. Young people had rights. Children were valued. Children were trained up and taught wisely. So, from what I can see, these people were very civilized. They just didn't have the white man's religion before. They had their own spirituality. They had their own way of doing things. So, as you can see, they had their own set of morals and principles that they followed. I think that I think it's more important for them to follow their own morals than to follow some morals and principles of the colonizing people. But what do I know? All right, guys, that is the end of the Vi people. We can discuss and talk about some of their culture at a different time if you like, but we'll be moving on to a new text tomorrow. I still have not gotten Kobe Cambone's book. I don't know if it's out of print. I don't know if I picked the wrong printer. I don't know what's going on, but it's very frustrating to me. I want to thank you, Brother Bakari and KW Down 7 for coming through. I appreciate each and every one of you. Our next book, we'll be reading The Psychopathic Racial Personality by Bobby E. Wright. Um, it's a good book. It's a good read as we head into this election season. I think we need to review this and we need to review Urugu because we need to know who these people are so that we can vote in accordance according to our interests. I thank each and every one of you for listening. I know that Brawana Hagaziki is listening, the Forecast is listening, Sister Ron, the Elders are listening, Koku is listening, Anthony McPhail is listening, Oni Tase is listening. I know that Denial is listening. I know that Peggy is listening. I know that Tony is listening. I want to thank each and every one of you for being here. I value you so much. Thanks for tuning in, guys. I'll see you tomorrow, and we'll be reading The Psychopathic Racial Personality and Other Essays by Bobby E. Wright. All right, guys. Peace.